Okay, brilliant. Right, I think we've got everybody now, so we will get started. So nice to meet you all. For those that I've not met already, my name is Isabel. So I've been working at ProspectSoft for over 5 years now, all in all. And I'm actually head of onboarding here at ProspectSoft. So for those that have been a new customer recently, you probably have gone through my team, and if not, even myself. So today's webinar, we're going to be looking at setting up your opportunities, which is going to follow on from the previous webinar done by our head of sales, Louise. And she took a look at the opportunities in a bit more detail on how they can benefit your business. So if you haven't watched that previous webinar, I do recommend that you do so, just so you can understand how the opportunities work in full. And this one will be focused more on setting up of those opportunities. So a quick recap then of why our customers use opportunities. So what they're designed for is for those businesses that have more of a complex sales process. So what they're not designed for is for those sales that are very quick. So if you get an existing customer phoning up and they go, oh, I just want to place an order with you, I would not be logging an opportunity for that. Instead, if you have a potential prospect maybe coming through that is really early stages, you're not sure how long it's going to take until you actually get the first order off of them, that's exactly what the opportunities are designed for, to help manage that sales process. So by logging an opportunity, you end up having tracking available for your sales team. So you actually can see what they are working on, because quite a lot of the time, if you have a potential opportunity, it's usually somewhere in your emails or in your head. That's all good and well, but if you're a sales manager, that's really difficult to then know what your sales team actually have in the pipeline. So by logging an opportunity, you then have that visibility within the CRM. There's also the option there to kind of log how much that particular opportunity is worth. So then you can start to monitor sales targets and their performance, because you'll then know what's in the pipeline and what's forecasted to close. And of course, by making sure they are following a pipeline and we're all doing the same things when it comes to selling, that ultimately will help speed up your quote to order, so ultimately your conversion rate. So again, if you want to learn more about how opportunities can benefit your business, have a watch of the previous webinar, and then this one will follow on from there. So first of all, we're going to take a look at our opportunity pipelines and how we can configure these to best match your sales processes. So why do we need to set up the opportunity pipelines? So what this does is it helps you to track the potential opportunities that you have. So you know where you are within the opportunity process. So it makes sure that all of your sales team are following a predefined process, because you get a list of statuses that you have to follow through in order to close off that opportunity. So it's a predefined list of stages that they would go through. It also helps you to identify why some of those sales are falling through the net, because when you close it, you can say, have we lost it to competitors? Have we lost it to price? And so on. So those pipelines can help identify why we are losing some of those sales. So just to explain a little bit the difference between an opportunity status and an opportunity pipeline. So the statuses, they should represent the key stages within your selling process. So for example, that might be inquiry, that might be pushing for close, that might be won. They're all statuses, a part of that sales process. And then the opportunity pipeline is the funnel or the journey that will then depict your sales process. So they will include those those opportunity statuses, so you can see clearly where you are within the process. So that's the main differences between the two. So you've got to have both of those set up in order to have a successful pipeline. So what we'll do is we'll head on into our CRM and actually take a look at all of this in action. So this is our demo CRM. So it should look very similar to all of your CRMs. So everything I'm going to show you today, you will have access to. So if I just go through to create a brand new opportunity, you will see within here that we have a pipeline drop-down. So what this, hang on. Let's just go back. What this pipeline should do is, as I say, depict the sales process that you have. So you can see here that we've got a list of different pipelines that we currently have within the CRM. But you can change these. These are fully customizable. So you can either edit the existing pipelines that are already there, or you could actually add in a brand new pipeline as well. So to edit these pipelines, you just simply click Configure, and that will then take you through to a list of current pipelines that are set up in your CRM. So if you wanted to edit an existing one, all you've got to do is click the pencil icon over on the right, and that will then open up a sidebar, and it will show you what the current statuses are within that pipeline. So I can see for this new business pipeline, we have unqualified, then qualified, in sales process, request meeting, and then pushing for close. And just below those opening statuses, we then have our closing statuses, which include things like won, lost, and dead. So that is the pipeline for this new business one. So if I did want to make any amendments to that, you'll see there's a little plus button by the open statuses and also by our closing statuses. So if I wanted to change those, I could simply click that plus button, and that will then allow me to unselect ones that we've already selected, or I could choose to include some new statuses as well. If you wanted to add in some brand new statuses that aren't already listed here, then you can. So you're not limited to the ones that are shown here, you can add in more. So you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner, there is a Manage List button. So if you click that, that will then allow you to edit the statuses. So let's do that. So if I click Manage List, what it does, it takes me through then to a list of all of our opportunity statuses, including both our closed statuses and also our open. So just to explain a little bit of the difference between open and closed. So closed would be things like dead or lost or won. So we have closed the opportunity, it is finished. But obviously you'd have different types of closing statuses depending on what the outcome was. Whereas your open statuses, they would still be there, they haven't been closed yet, so they're still in the sales process. So that could be things like quoting, it could be when we're qualifying them, when we're pushing for close, all of those would be an open status. So it's important to know the difference there. So you can see all of the current statuses that are there, and there are a pencil icon, so you can edit any of those existing statuses, but you can also add in a brand new status as well. So over in the top right-hand corner, you'll see there's a little plus button. So if you click that, that then opens up a pop-up window for us to fill in the details about our new status that we want to add. So in the description here, this is what the status would be called. So let's add a new status called sending samples. So some people in their selling process, they have to send samples. So that's clearly a very key stage within your selling process. So that should be a status within your pipeline. So once you've typed out the description, you can simply click Create, and that will then go through and add that new opportunity status to the list that we see. So it puts it into alphabetical order. So if you can't find it, just have a look through the list, and then you will. It's in alphabetical order. So there it is, just there, sending samples, the new one that we've just added. So once you've added your status, there are a couple more options that you can fill in for your status. So if you click the pencil icon, you'll be able to see these additional options that you can change. So within the sidebar that has now just appeared, you'll see we have a drop down for whether a task is required or not. So by default, it does set the status to require a task. And that means that when the opportunity is in that status, if a user tried to close that opportunity, it wouldn't let them. It would say, nope, you need to set a task first. If they've already got a task set, then yes, it would allow them to close it, but it just makes sure that somebody has this on their to-do list. So for this status example of sending samples, I would definitely want to make sure that somebody has this on their to-do list if it's in this status. So I'm going to leave that as required. But you can see there are other options, such as optional with a pop-up windows that will prompt them to set a task, or you can have disabled auto clear, so it will remove the task, and then also optional no pop-up. So that basically means that you can set a task, but it's not going to prompt them. So just have a think about what's going to be most useful for your users when it's in that status. We then have our closed state. So is it an open or closed status, like what we were talking about earlier? So this is an open status. I'm going to leave that as it is. And we do have status outcomes as well. So this is particularly important for the reporting. And this is usually used when you're dealing with a closed status. So for example, a closing status of 1 would be positive. A closing status of lost would be negative. So it's just to help us when we're looking at those reports on the dashboards, whether it's a positive or negative close. As it's an open status, I'm just going to leave that as neutral. And then we can also allow editing. So when the opportunity is in this status, do we allow the users to be able to edit the opportunity? Now, most of the time you would, you want people to be able to go in there, add notes, update information as they go. So most of the time you'll leave that as editable. But in some rare cases, you actually only either want admin users to be able to edit the opportunity once it's in that status, or have all users not be able to edit it, so it's read only. So normally the two that people would use would be editable, and then possibly admin only can edit that. And then finally, we have the option to add status details. So I'm just going to go into another status to explain how this works. So I'm actually going to go into the lost status, because this is a great example of how status details can be really useful. So what status details are, when you select this status of lost in the pipeline, you then get a second drop down automatically, which will have these options, so these details. So you can see here, when you select lost, you can then choose one of these options. So we have in here like lost on feature, lost on price, lost to competitor, and then other reason. So then it just helps to further categorize how that opportunity was closed in that status. So those details are available on both open and closed statuses. So just remember that that is there in case you do have a status where it needs that additional detail. If you do need to add a detail, you just click the little plus button, and that will then open up a pop-up window for you to then write in that detail. So for example, maybe it was lost on product features. So if I click create, that then goes through and adds that additional status detail to the list. So nice and easy to add options to the details section. So what we've done so far is we've gone in, we've added in a new status of sending samples. So now that we've added that status, we can then add that to a pipeline, because all we've done so far is just set up that status. We now need to actually add that to a pipeline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this configure opportunity status window by clicking the little X button. And that then takes me back to where we were when we were configuring the pipelines. So if I did actually want to add that sending samples to maybe the new business pipeline, then I can do so. Again, we just click the pencil icon for that particular pipeline, and we'll click the plus button for the open status section. And all I've got to do is then find our sending sample status that we added, which is just here, and then click update. And that will then add that status in. And then all you've got to do is drag and drop that then to reorder it, because sending samples probably isn't going to be the first step within our pipeline. It probably will come maybe after being qualified. We're going to send samples, and then it'll go into the sales process. If you did want to remove any from your pipeline as well, that's also possible. So you'll see there's a little delete icon. So I could remove, for example, request meeting, and that will then remove the status from the pipeline. So that's how to edit existing pipelines, but we also can add in brand new pipelines as well. So you may want to have multiple pipelines set up, particularly if you have different sales processes for different types of sales. So for example, if you're a business that sells maybe both consumables and machines, maybe your machine selling process has a slightly different sales process compared to the consumables. So therefore, you might have a slightly different pipeline. So to add a new opportunity pipeline, again, you click the plus button in the top right-hand corner. And all you've got to do is give your pipeline a description. So in here, we might call this machine new sale. And then we can choose a objective as well. So basically, what is the objective of this pipeline? Are we trying to upsell? So do people usually buy machines when we're already a customer and we're trying to upsell to them? Or is it actually usually they buy a machine when they're a brand new customer? So we'd say that's customer acquisition. We'll be doing more things on the objectives later down the line. So it is definitely worth setting those up when you do configure your pipeline. So if we click create, that's now going to add that pipeline to the list of pipelines that we already had. So you can now see machine new sale just here. So if you click the pencil icon, we can then choose the statuses that we would like to have within our machine new sale pipeline. And you'll notice that they're both blank because obviously it's a brand new pipeline, so we don't have any selected just yet. So if we click the plus button from the open status section, we can then choose any statuses we might want. So for example, we might want request meeting, we might have in sales post process, pushing for close, qualified and unqualified. So once you've selected your statuses, you just click update and that will then add them to the list. And then you can drag and drop them to rearrange them in the correct order. So once you've added your open statuses, you also need to have a closing status because we need to be able to close the opportunity off once we're at the end of the pipeline. So if we click the little plus button next to closing statuses, we'll get a list of just the closing ones that have been set up. So I can choose, for example, one lost and dead. And again, if you click update, that then adds those closing statuses to the pipeline. So we have just set up a brand new pipeline. So if I come out of our configure window, we will now see in the pipeline drop down our machine new sale. And if I select that, I can then see the statuses that we selected and the closing statuses. Hopefully that is all clear and makes sense. We do have a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you do have any questions, feel free to post them now and I'll get back to them when we get to the Q&A part. But hopefully that all makes sense to everybody. So we're just going to go back to our slides. So the next thing that we're going to look at is how to configure your opportunity types. So opportunity types, what are they? So they help you to categorize what type of sale the opportunity is for. It's really useful if you do have various different product areas that maybe people come and buy from. So again, using that example of machine sales versus consumables, you could have an opportunity type for consumables and a type of opportunity for machine sales. So then you can choose the relevant one for that potential opportunity that you're working on. If you don't really need to categorize your opportunities by things like that, that's absolutely fine. Opportunity types aren't mandatory, so you don't have to set those up, but it is really useful when you're filtering on the reports. So if you've got a list of 100 odd opportunities, you might want to just see the machine sales opportunities. So if you've got that type configured, you would then be able to filter those opportunities down. So it is worth setting up if you do have different types of sale. So how to do that? So you'll see when you're creating a new opportunity, you will have a drop down for the types, and we can see all the types in there at the moment. So this testing system's around a jam company. So we have some jam making equipment items. We have some ingredients and so on. So what we can do here at the bottom is we can configure that drop down. So worth noting, actually, just for all of these things that we're looking at, this is only available for admin users of your CRM. So if you have admin rights within the CRM, then you will have that configure button. If you don't have configure at the bottom, then that just means you don't have the admin permissions. So somebody within your business that does have admin rights could give you that if you need them. So if we click configure, that will then take us through to a list of the opportunity types that we have at the moment. And if I wanted to edit any of these, again, it's just a simple click of the pencil icon, and then you can change the description of those opportunity types. If I wanted to add a new type, then again, that's also easy. So in the top right-hand corner, if I click the little plus button, I could then add in a new type. So maybe we're going to start selling marmalade, not just jam. So I could start typing in marmalade. And if I click create, that will then go through and add that opportunity type now to the list. So you can see that listed just there. So you would have noticed when we were creating that type, we did get a drop down for the default pipeline. So this is particularly useful if when you select a type and you are going to be using a certain pipeline, whenever you have that type of opportunity, then you can actually set the default pipeline so it selects it for you. So if I just set this up, for example, the jam making equipment, so if I click the pencil icon for that, I could say the default pipeline would be machine new sell because it's a machine that we're selling. So if I just come out of this configure opportunity type to show you this, if I just come out of here and do a new opportunity, when I select the type of jam making equipment, it automatically selects the pipeline of machine new sale. So it's just helping your user make sure that they're using the right pipeline for that type of opportunity. So if that is quite clear cut with your types, then definitely make sure you set up the default pipelines because that could really help. So that is how you set up the types, nice and simple, just an easy drop down there. But once you do have those set up, as I say, that will really help you when it comes to reporting by opportunities, because then you can filter by the type that they are. So the next feature that we're going to look at configuring is our opportunity size and margins. So opportunity size, they consist of value ranges to help you estimate how big that potential opportunity is. So the sizes could be, 1 to 2,000, that could be 2 to 3,000, whatever ranges makes more sense for your business. Every business is different, so the sizes of your sales will differ. So it is quite important to put in some relevant sizes in there for your sales team to choose from. It is just an estimate of the size, of the initial size, but when you actually do the quote and or the sales order and add all the products and the pricing on, then we'll take the value from that quote or sales order that you've done and then enter that for the opportunity size. So we do automatically do that for you once a quote or sales order has been created. But when you're initially creating the opportunity, that size is a great place to pop in an estimate at this point. And then opportunity margin works very similar. You get the same ranges. You get 1 to 2K or 2 to 3K, whatever ranges you want to set up. And it is just an estimate of how much margin we think will be generated. But again, once you do the quotational sales order, we'll have the cost prices of your products from your inventory management system that's connected, or accounting system, depending on what you've got connected. And we'll be able to calculate the actual margin. This is just an estimate to begin with when you're logging the opportunity. Also, just to touch upon there, depending on your user permissions, you may not be able to see actual margin because that's down to a user permission if you're in the restricted dictionary or whether you're in the standard dictionary. So let's take a look at the size and margin and how that is set up. So you can see here we've got our size and also our margin, and as I mentioned, they're the exact same ranges, so whatever you do in the size, it will then also show in the margin. And again, we have a configure button, so we can click that to edit the sizes. So this will take you through to a list of the current sizes set up. Our testing system obviously has pound sterling in there, but yours will probably just be 1 to 2K to then default to whatever your home currency is. But if you wanted to put in a currency symbol, by all means, you can. So you can edit the existing ones that are here, but you're probably more likely to add in more ranges if you needed to. So for example, maybe we want a smaller range, maybe a range from £500 to then £1,000, rather than just having up to 1,000. So to add in a new size, you just click the little plus button in the top right-hand corner, and then you give it a description. So this could be, for example, £500 to £1,000. And then what you have to do is just choose an average value. So the average value would be the midpoint of the range. So that's what we give the opportunity. So when you're looking at a list of opportunities and their values, if a size has been selected, then it would say that it's worth, for example, £750, because that is the average value of that size range. So whatever you put in here, that's how much then the opportunity size is going to be associated with. And then once you're happy with that, you'd simply just click create, and that would then go through and add in that new opportunity size to your list. And as I mentioned, that would also show for your margin, because these two drop downs are exactly the same. Okay. So our final configuration is our opportunity source. So opportunity sources are really useful to analyze where your potential sales are coming through from. So where are your channels of inquiries coming from? And obviously by filling out the source, you can then run reports to find out where each of those opportunities are coming through from, and seeing where your return on investment is being most beneficial. So types of sources might be, trade shows, e-shops, campaigns, social media, all types of inbound and outbound activities that your marketing team may be organising. And if you don't have a marketing team, you're a slightly smaller business, then that's still worth filling in the opportunity source to know where you're getting your most of your inquiries coming through from. If you're getting loads of inquiries through from your website, then that's great. We know that the website is performing and doing its job. And if we're getting more inquiries coming through off the phone rather than on the website, then maybe we need to rejig something there. So let's just have a look then at how we can edit those sources. So the last thing you can see here is the source drop down. So that does default to unknown, but obviously the user can change that then to say where the source came through from. So we've got a few already in there set up, but if I did want to change this list, that is possible. So if we click configure, what that does is it then gives me a list of all the current sources that we have. And again, if you wanted to edit any of these, you could click the pencil icon to change them. But you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, again, we have our plus button, so we can add in more. So maybe we're starting to do a lot more work on Facebook, so a social media channel. So it might be that you want to add in Facebook as a marketing source. So I could pop in here, Facebook. You can associate a cost. So, like a trade show, usually there's a cost associated with that, but you don't have to fill that in. It's not required. And you can also give it a description as well, in case there's any additional detail as to why that source was added. But the main thing that you need to fill in here is the name. So if you click create, that will go through and add that opportunity source of Facebook. So if I was to close this and go back into our source, I will now see Facebook as an option. So I could then say this new opportunity that we're logging came through from Facebook. And then of course you could then run a report to see how many opportunities we've generated with a source of Facebook. Okay. The sources also do link up with our campaign activity feature. We will be doing a webinar on campaigns later on in the series, so worth signing up for that one, for the MailChimp integration as well, the marketing. And what that does is, if you've got a campaign activity with a source of Facebook, it would then provide a second drop down where you could then select that campaign activity. So you can even say what particular activity that came through from. So if you were doing a massive campaign pushing a particular product on Facebook, you could set up an activity for it and then see exactly how many opportunities were generated off the back of that promo. So worth having a look at the campaign activities if that's something of interest. Okay, excellent. Well, that was everything that we wanted to cover off with you today on the configuration side for the opportunities. So do we have any questions at all on anything we've gone through today, or anything related to opportunities? Looks like Andy, you've raised a hand. If you have, there should be a Q&A section or the chat. Either one, pop your question in there if you can. Oh, hang on, I can allow you to talk if you want to talk.
Hi, it said chat disabled.
Ah, there you go. Andy, you can talk. I can hear you.
Okay. It's a question on both of them. We've got a trade show coming up. Mm-hmm. So what would you recommend doing? Would we set a exhibition as a opportunity type, an opportunity source, would that be a thing, or would you also do it from the campaign level as well, so we can manage at all cost, so we can manage the pipeline?
Yeah.
What would your best advice be on that?
Yeah, sure. So my advice would be to use the source. So definitely use this. And you can see that there's actually a standard one in the system already, which will probably be on yours as well, which is exhibition. So if you were to select that, then obviously you could actually set up a campaign activity. So if you go and create a campaign, you can set that the type is exhibition. So then you could add the actual trade show that you're doing, pop in the name of the trade show, the date that it's happening on, also add a cost in as well for that exhibition that you're doing. And then if you were to select exhibition, it would then come up as an activity. So you could actually tie it back to that campaign activity that you set up. So basically my recommendation there would be to use the source, set it as exhibition, and create a campaign for that trade show that you're doing. And when you set up that campaign, just make sure the type is set to exhibition, and then it will come up when you're logging your opportunities, and it'll all be tied back then really nicely.
Okay, and what about a pipeline? Would you say doing that as well? Because we would take contacts at the show, so they would be all on that same pipeline. Yeah,
so I would just, it depends if they're new business or repeat business. So I guess you could be getting some existing customers coming up to your trade show as well. But I would be putting in that as a kind of a new customer. I think yours is called in your system, or new business. And if you select that pipeline, I would use that one. And then obviously create them as contacts within your CRM. So when you're logging an opportunity, you'll see there's a parent section. So you can actually either choose an existing customer that you've already got in your CRM, or you can choose to create a new company and a new contact. So you can just do it all in one go.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
That's all right. Thanks for the question. Brilliant. Okay. Anybody else got any other questions? Brilliant. Okay, well, if you guys are feeling a bit daunted about asking questions, because it's obviously got lots of people on here, that's absolutely fine. If you do have any follow-up questions, just go through our standard support channels. So you'll see in the top right-hand corner, we have a question mark. And in here, we have an online chat, so you can ask questions via there. And also you can call our main line or log an email through our help@prospectsoft.com, go straight through to our support team. So whatever you feel more comfortable with, feel free to ask away via those channels. Excellent. So the next session, just to remind everybody, which will be the same time next week, is quoting via Prospect CRM. If you can join us live, that is great. If you can't, don't worry, you'll be sent through the recording as long as you signed up for the webinar series. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm sure I will speak to some of you later on. Take care. Bye.